Hello there, and welcome back to Hydroponics Daily, your go-to podcast for everything soilless cultivation. I'm your host, Dr. Russell Sharp, and on yesterday's podcast, I said that I was going to do a podcast all about growing peanuts hydroponically. I wasn't sure whether this had been done before, but now I've done some research and I found that it has been done experimentally, but not commercially. So there have been a number of studies looking at peanut cultivation, and let's have a look at them. So peanuts, scientific name, Arachis hypergaea. They're a legume, so their roots fix nitrogen, though the bacteria do, in the root nodules, and they have the same pea-like flower, but unusually, once pollinated, they then form what then becomes the fruit. It buries down into the soil and develops into what we now know as the peanut, or what we commonly refer to as the peanut. So peanuts have been grown in recirculatory hydroponic systems by NASA, who we've talked about before, and they've looked at growth, yield, humidity, CO2, and they've optimized them. And then other researchers have looked at nutrient film technique and deep water culture using specialist trays designed to let the pegs, and these are the developing fruits, or the gynophores, grow down into a moist zone for pod formation. Now, this is important because the life cycle of the peanut relies on, about after 35 days after planting, they start to flower. Then, after pollination, after about 60 days after planting, the fruit, or the developing fruit, sort of bends down and forms what's called a peg, and the peg burrows into the ground, and the tip of the peg takes in water and nutrients from the soil as well as the plant. And that's probably one of only a handful of plants that do that. I don't know of any other plants that do that. So the pod then expands to full size and the peanut develops inside. And then after 100 days, they can be harvested for boiling. A lot of them are boiled. 120 to 150 days after planting, full seed maturity is reached. So the mature seeds can be planted to begin the cycle again. So after 100 days, you can harvest it and eat it. After 120 to 150 days, you can get the seeds that can be used for the life cycle. So we said that the peg absorbs moisture and nutrients, especially calcium, directly from the soil. So the pegging phase is very important. And so DWC seems to be good at this because they can, or even putting the developing pegs into special trays alongside the main roots is one potential way of doing it. The pods and mature seeds have been successfully produced directly in darkened, aerated nutrient solution, given adequate calcium and aeration. So you could have potentially a separate nutrient solution for the pods, which gets rather complicated, doesn't it, having those? But if you can think of a good reason why your hydroponic peanuts be better than soil grown ones, then potentially there's a market and some unique IP around that. They've been used to study rooting systems and nutrient toxicity, such as cadmium and aluminium, and so they've been used as almost like a model plant species. And NASA's work was on root, tuber, and nut crops, explicitly included peanuts as one of the candidate foods for space life support systems. So potentially they were looking at whether astronauts and Mars colonizers could eat peanuts. So there's no evidence of any large-scale commercial peanut production in greenhouses compared to lettuce, tomatoes, strawberries, those sorts of standard crops. At least one peanut company is reportedly investigating hydroponics or aerofarming with polytunnel research, but there's not a lot of information on that. Agrocrops is that one. And then obviously there's people on Reddit, as there always are with any crop, growing it and reporting back, but not so very much DIY amateur side of things. So an interesting one, pegging, or gynophores, as it were. One of the potential benefits of hydroponics, as always with hydroponics, is the massive water saving you can get compared to soil-grown crops. You're talking 80-90% water saving. And with peanuts, this is potentially even more because the peanuts are absorbing water from the hydroponic system. So there's a double saving there. And then obviously when you harvest peanuts, normally you have to pull the plants out of the ground and then wash them if they're going to be used for human consumption. And so that will mean that when they're washed, the vast amounts of dirty water are created, which is a massive issue because it loses water and it also loses soil. So you could potentially grow clean peanuts hydroponically, which could be a tipping factor in commercializing it. So it sounds crazy, doesn't it? It sounds like one of these ones where it would be the last crop you would ever consider because it's so complicated with these pegs going in and the developing fruit. But if you can save serious amounts of water, then it could be a good crop as water becomes more limiting. So an interesting one there. So there are a number of different studies there. This sort of semi-hydroponic systems as well. If you go on YouTube, there's people doing it in like cocoa and things like this. But for pure hydroponics, then DWC and NFT seems to work. And what else was it? Yeah, they said that you basically don't need it's one of these NFT systems where you don't need to grow media. I might talk about that tomorrow, whether, some NFTs, you just have the small plug the plant is planted into, and then they go into the nutrient solution and the root systems can grow really well. Whereas other crops, you actually have to have like a rock wool grow media. So we'll talk about whether you should use a grow media at all in tomorrow's podcast, probably. So short one today, peanuts, or as it's scientifically known, was it Arachis hypogaea? I don't know what that means. And then the pegs. The word of the day is gynophores. It's not going to be pegging. It's going to be gynophores. All right. That's been Hydroponics Daily for today. If you found this at all useful, maybe you're a peanut farmer who's trying to get into hydroponics, please leave us an Apple podcast review. It helps the podcast tremendously. If you're not listening on Apple, don't bother leaving a review. It's a waste of time. Just make sure you follow us to hear more exciting episodes every day of 2025, and check out utrema.co.uk. If you're interested in growing peanuts hydroponically, please get in touch and we'll make a bespoke fertilizer for you. I don't offer that to everyone, but I'm really interested in growing legumes hydroponically. I can't be bothered to do it myself, but if somebody else wants to do it, I'll make you a fertilizer and we can experiment with what's the best one, the best formulation for it, because there's no real work that's been done on that, I think, of any notes. So that's been Hydroponics Daily for today. I'll see you again tomorrow. Goodbye.